Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 426 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTG Goldfish, Richard. How are you this fine Monday, Richard?
Good morning, Seth. Still recovering from my cold, so...
Tell me about it. Good God. We were talking about this before the cast. I didn't remember colds lasting so long. I thought you got a cold for like a day or two, but I'm on like day 5 and I'm still like, so congested. And
that's when you're young and healthy, Seth. As an old man, you're just like barely scraping by here.
Yeah, tell me about it. And yeah, death by cold. That would be embarrassing. We also have another co-host, Krim. Good morning, Krim. How are you?
I am now wondering if I'm coming down with something, so I'm not sure.
Just now that you heard us talking about colds, you start to get a little scratch in your throat, and
honestly, I've had a scratch in my throat since like yesterday, so I don't know. But yeah, like I feel okay currently. We'll see where it progresses.
Oh, well, that's good. Well, we got a ton of stuff to talk about today. We got March of the Machine spoilers, a couple. We're really kicking off spoiler season Wednesday, but we got some early ones. We got a Dungeons and Dragons Secret Lair drop that Wizards kind of accidentally posted that's going to be coming out in a bit. And then some smaller news, Mark Rosewater's teaser about March of the Machines, Oathbreaker kind of being a thing, some arena bugs, some Ixalan news, some TCG Player news. So we're going to be jumping around, touching on a bunch of different topics today. Before we jump into it, though, a reminder that today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit. And Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. And if you're tired of all the hassles that go into buy listing your cards, Card Conduit lets you skip them. You don't got to do all the typing and spend all the time and do all the work. With their curated service, you can send in as many cards as you want with a buy list value of $1 or more and pay just a 5% service fee. And if you want to put in a bit of effort on your end, you can use the sorted service where you list and sort your cards in advance and pay just a 2% fee. And no matter which one you choose, you're going to get a detailed report with the results and a fast payment once your order is processed. And right now you can get another 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/mtggoldfish. Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So thank you to Card Conduit for supporting the show. Let's talk about some Magic, and let's start with probably the biggest news of the week, which is early March of the Machine spoilers. So we got like super early spoilers a month ago, a sneak peek at the set. Over the last few days though, Wizards has been releasing the story of the set, and along with the story, we've gotten a couple of new Planeswalker cards before the official start of spoiler season on Wednesday. So Richard, why don't you guide us through some spoiler cards?
All right. You can check out all the preview cards at mtgpreviews.com. I've been waiting all week to see if I've gone insane. Wrenn and Realmbreaker. People are freaking out. This is the next coming of Oko. We're talking modern playability. We're talking about legacy playability. I'm not sure about this, so I wanted to ask you guys. Wrenn and Realmbreaker, 1GG, legendary planeswalker Wrenn. Lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. 4 starting loyalty, by the way. So that's the static. And then +1, up to 1 target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental creature with vigilance, hexproof, and haste until your next turn. It's still a land. It does not untap, by the way. -2, mill 3 cards. You may put a permanent card from among the milled cards into your hand. -7, you get an emblem with you may play lands and cast permanent spells from your graveyard. Is this Oko 2.0?
No,
is this breaking every form? Is this initiative?
It's a no-go. I mean,
it's a no-go.
I don't think it's a bad card, but I think it's a little bit overrated. I know when I first read it, I just assumed that it untapped the land with its +1 because pretty much all like recent Planeswalkers do that. I think if it untapped the land, it might actually be Oko. Like then I think we're talking about one of the best Planeswalkers that's been printed in a while. As it is though, not untapping the land, if you think about it, you play this on turn 3, what do you do with it? You take it down and like mill 3 cards and hopefully get something back to your hand. Like you should hit something if you're playing a deck full of permanents, but still you're only getting to see those 3 cards. It's not like a Tyvar where you mill 3 but then you can return any creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is only those 3 specific cards, so I almost feel like this is a 4 mana planeswalker that costs 3 mana, if that makes sense. I think you want to play it on 4 so you can untap that land and have like the defense, or not untap the land but have an untapped land to play some defense. So I don't think it's bad, but I think it's actually like it's like a fine card for graveyard decks, but I don't think it's like a format defining card or anything close to that.
It's just a good card. It's not like the sky is falling. I don't think it's like the best. Like, I could be wrong, and this for some odd reason just is Oko. But like right now, I think it just is okay. Like in this current standard, it's just a okay card. I don't even know what green deck would exist right now. Yeah, like
every set, I swear, I try to build the Urborg Lurgoyf deck. Every time a new set comes out, like hold stick fingers, Urborg Lurgoyf. Every time it's like fun but not good, and I don't know if Wrenn changes that.
Like, see, like the thing is, Wrenn doesn't like boost. I'm talking strictly standard. Before someone yells at me, but what about this in XYZ format? But in standard, it's like Grixis, mono white, right? Mono red in best of one, sure. Esper mid range, and then you go down to Selesnya Poison. That's the first deck that will have green that's in the top meta, right? So if that's the case, Selesnya Poison, do they want a Wrenn? No, I don't think they do. So then you keep going, and then eventually you do have 5-color mid-range, but I guarantee you, is 5-color mid-range in need of Wrenn? Probably not. So the question here is, does Wrenn spawn an archetype themselves?
I actually, there is one place that I really like in standard that is not my like Mimi graveyard deck that always fails on me, but I think it's pretty interesting in some of the Atraxa Reanimator decks. I think that's one of the decks that it cares about filling the graveyard because you're trying to reanimate Atraxa. So like the mill is actually beneficial. Plus you can get back a whatever Fable or something that dies. Like that's some nice value. And the fixing's kind of relevant because you can play this, and actually the Chromatic Lantern mode might let you just hardcast your Atraxa or your Cami War if you're that build. So I think that maybe that deck would play some number of them just as like kind of a value-y card. Yeah. But I still, like, would you play 4 of them? Probably not. But I would probably jam a couple in some of the 5-color Atraxa lists.
So yeah, like once you get down to like the 5-color mid-range deck, so that's like the 6th best deck, right? Like if you look at like the meta percentages, then yeah, that's where you'll see most likely Wrenn comes in. But I'm curious, does Wrenn make an archetype outside of that? Jund Windgrace, I think, is another thing that kind of slipped off, right? And then it lurks around, but like, yeah, like, so that's, I think Windgrace feels like a better home for it, but I don't know if Windgrace all of a sudden becomes tier 1 because of it.
It goes in my Story Spotlight deck.
Story Spotlight drive.
What?
my flavor deck here.
Okay.
So I actually thought it was regrowth until Seth pointed out you only get like a permanent from the milled cards. So like this is like stone unplayable, right? Like
ooh, that's a
like
little
you
harsh,
really need to combo with this card somehow. Like it's not a good value card, right? It's just like when you just play divination, like if this is what you wanted to do, like can you really take turn 3 off to do like the world's slowest and worst divination? Like the +1 is a laughably bad creature, right? It doesn't block well. It's a 3/3, which like does nothing. Like if it was indestructible, then we're talking, right? If people are like, oh, but in older formats you can get a fetch land and then you can plus it and then you can block sack, and I'm like, that's what you wanted to do for 3 mana, right? Like it's color fixing is weird because it's double green colorless, so like you have to skew heavily green and then hope you draw this to like get your color fixed, which ironically is not actually that bad, as Crim's mono green Grixis commander deck has shown us. But
hey, that was a good deck.
that -2 is bad, no? Like why are people talking about this in Modern and Pioneer and Legacy? Like, is this really like maybe you played in lands or something? I don't know. Like,
I think it does come down on turn 2 if you have a mana dork, which is nice. Right. Like that's, I think, one of the upsides in older formats.
Turn 2 if you have a mana dork set.
Nah, I guess that it could be a blood moon. It could be a blood moon. But yeah, I mean, if you care about filling it great, what about the Greasefang deck, Crib, and like Pioneer or Explorer? Like, would that be in the market for this? It's only 3 mana. It's filling your graveyard. It can be getting back like a Greasefang that you mill to a Satyr Wayfinder or whatever like mill cards you have. Is that worth it, you think, in a strategy like that?
I mean, when you already have Liliana, I think Liliana plays better at that slot. Because, like, you know, at this point now, Greasefang is so good and so potent. Like, this feels like it's actually diluting the deck, right? Because it's your choice is now this or Liliana of your Planeswalker of choice, right? I would choose Liliana. Liliana being able to plus eat your opponent's hand while also helping you bin the cards that's stuck in your hand, right? Like, I think Liliana is just better.
It might be. I mean, and you also like
double green red into Liliana using the passive.
I mean,
get the best of both worlds.
you sure then you become this weird Abzan Super Friends deck that also just has like Asika's Chariot. Like, I don't know.
Maybe the biggest vote against this card, and I think you might have frozen Crim Routes. You're sitting very still.
Yeah, nope.
Maybe the biggest reason that I'm a little skeptical is Liliana the Last Hope doesn't really see play. And it does a lot of the same things. Like, it comes down for 3 mana. The +1 can defend it. It can even kill things. The -2 mills cards, and you get any creature back to your hand. And that's not a card that Greasefang is really interested in. So, I don't know. I still think the card has potential in graveyard decks as just a value card, but I think it's a little bit too overhyped at this point. Kind of hilariously, out of the 2 Planeswalkers they revealed, I think Wrenn is way overhyped, but the other one I think might actually not be as hyped as hyped as it should be.
All right, Archangel Allspeth, 2 white, 4 loyalty. Create +1, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. -2, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. It becomes an angel in addition to its other types and gains flying. -6, return all non-land permanents with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield.
I'm assuming you meant Archangel Allspeth.
What did I say?
Allison.
I say that sometimes too, yeah.
First off, I'm going to assume that you meant that.
Elspeth coming back as an angel.
So this card, when it first came out, I was kind of like, I don't know. It looks a lot like the original Elspeth, actually. Elspeth Knight Errant, when you think about the abilities. And that card was legit 15 years ago, but it's been a while since I've seen anyone doing anything with OG Elspeth. The more I've thought about this card, though, I think the -2 actually gives it a lot of potential. Like, I think, like, play Adeline turn 3, play this turn 4, just tick down 2 counters on Adeline, hit your opponent for like 8 in the air or some ridiculous amount. Remember 3 mana Ajani Caller of the Pride? How it would come down for 3 and it had that negative that would just like give something flying and double strike, and you just like throw your biggest thing at your opponent's face, and that was very good. I'm almost imagining Elspeth being like the 4 mana version of that. You get a little bit of upside because it can, if you get time, like grind it out against control making tokens or whatever. But for me, I think that -2, if you can build a deck where that -2 is scary, I think that's where Elspeth can shine in Standard.
Doesn't Wandering Emperor have to like rotate for this to be like? Because
that's a big issue.
Wandering Emperor literally does what you just said, but like at an instant speed rate, right? Like, it makes tokens, grinding out control. It still grows your creature, but the difference is also is removal. So the Archangel Allspeth, even if there is a deck for it, it's not going to be right now. I think on release, it's going to be kind of just, unfortunately, just not good enough, right? Like, compared to the Wandering Emperor.
I think it replaces Elspeth, actually. Like the other Elspeth. So,
right.
Elspeth.
like 5 mana Elspeth.
Yes.
So, like, literally, when you play mono white or any white deck, you know what you win off of? Like that +1, like the flying counter and the lifelink counter from Big Elspeth, right? You get like your dirtily 2/2 knight from Wanderer. You slap a lifelink counter on it and a flying counter, and then you just win. This does that at 4 mana and like much better because it has its own lifelink. So you can +1 and then minus, hit him with a 3/3 flying, and then if it's still around, then you minus again. And then you're hitting 5 in the air lifelink. So I think this is actually extremely good in Standard. It does compete with Wandering Emperor, but I think you kind of just play both. And
I think I also think that Elspeth may be better in aggro, and Wandering Emperor is better in like mid-range and control. Like, imagine like Selesnya Toxic. Like you're playing your toxic stuff. Wandering Emperor's kind of, it's like would be okay, but you don't normally play that. But imagine just like playing your toxic stuff and then you drop your Bloated Contaminator and then the next turn you play this and send your Bloated Contaminator to there, hit your opponent for 6, get in the toxic, start proliferating. So I feel like that's where I'm more hyped about this. Like the mono white mid-range deck, I mean, I guess it's okay, but like mono white aggro with Adeline, like that's where this card scares me. Or like it makes a soldier token. It's a little awkward in soldiers because of Thalia taxing it, but still, like soldiers is another deck where you just play this and double -2, and you're probably just like killing people. I was low on it at first, but I've really come around to thinking that it's good because of the -2.
I'm trying to think like how the negative, like if the -2 is the truth or not. Like
you just get flying. It's permanent, right? It's like the difference between this and old Elspeth is you needed to continually jump your creature, but this you just do it once, so you can actually spread out your flying if you're afraid of removal, or you can like Voltron it up. The fact that you can play with Wanderer and get vigilance out of this is pretty good, because now you have like a 4/4 flying you have a Sarah Angel essentially, which can become a 6/6 the next turn. This might make green playable, I think. Right? You play like some dirty green beater, playable? And then you just jump it, and like that's good enough, right? Like,
yeah, thrun them with your Angel Thrun.
I won so many, like I play so much mono white, and that you literally just win with like flying life. So either it's Ambitious Farmhand, the greatest card in Standard, because it flips for the lifelink. Right? Like once you get like a 5/5 and start gaining life, like people can't outpace you. Right? Like you're like Children, you're like, whatever. I'll draw 8 cards because I have a 10/10 lifelinker. Like who cares, right? Like so I actually really highly value the lifelink soldier, and then like giving random creatures flying, especially if your deck already has lifelinkers. So I kind of like this as a 1-card win con. Is it better than Big Elspeth though, where you plus
Richard, how do you, what timeline are you in where you get to play a 1 win con deck now? Invoke Despair, so many things just take out numerous stuff all at once. If you see Sheoldred, that
I mean, I don't know. Does a soldier token count? Because that's how you win games. Does a wedding ring token count? Like not really. Winning. I mean,
the wedding announcement gets taken out usually.
Yeah, but the leftover token, you Voltron it up.
Oh, all right. I mean, yeah, like I don't know. I mean, that's the problem. I just feel like this alone. Okay, the only thing this does is like it allows you to check 2 of the 3 boxes out of Invoke Despair.
So Wanderer is the Invoke Despair eater, right? You come down and you kill something, and then it sits around to eat and Invoke Despair, right? And then Archangel Allspeth can pump out tokens to protect your real creatures, but spoiler, you don't have real creatures. They're all like dirtily 1/1s.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
And also, because of Invoke Despair, it's important that you have a critical mass of planeswalkers, so your important one doesn't get picked off. So you need to play like 2 or 3 planeswalkers. So I'm actually pretty high on this card. I think it's actually really good. People are not just only sleeping on it, but I think you'll actually see it a lot. Maybe not more than Wanderer, because that just goes in literally every deck. Like you play control deck, whatever, right? But any deck with creatures, which is most decks in Standard, I think can use this card.
And it's also worth mentioning we are in Proliferate Standard. I remember like Koth, the ability for Koth to like uptick one's Proliferate Ultimate is actually pretty powerful. That's the one thing Koth actually does well. And this kind of has that same play pattern where you could Elspeth uptick for a token, Proliferate the next turn, Ultimate to get like the Mass Sun Titan effect and get back all your little soldiers or toxic creatures or whatever. So I actually, even though you don't want to usually evaluate Planeswalkers by the Ultimate, I think in a Standard with Proliferate, the Ultimate's actually like relatively attainable on this one.
But it sucks.
Nah, it doesn't.
I think I would never use this
Sun Titan suck. Really? Well, in your mono white ambitious farmhand deck, you might not have enough to
like
get
you
back,
run out of
honestly,
targets for the saga, let alone like try to ultimate this thing, right?
Yeah, maybe that's true. Yeah,
but I guess you get back to Spirited Companion and keep
draw some cards. Yeah,
Keep
tutor up
going.
some
I
lands
don't know
with
what you get.
farmhand.
Yeah, I don't know what you would get because Farewell's in the format too, right? And a lot of
Yeah.
graveyard hate. So even if you manage to ultimate, I don't know that you want to ultimate. But it's plus ultimate.
I do think that it could be played maybe. No, actually, I don't even know if the Angel deck in Explorer wants it because you can't. It ruins your Coco hits.
And all your stuff's already angels.
Yeah, everything's
People
angels
are
already.
unreasonably excited about turning things into angels, but I'm like, well, all of your creatures are already angels. What is that actually doing in your angel deck?
Well, your
But-
Bishop of Wings can now be an angel.
Hey.
You can get back Bishop. That ultimate literally gets back everything in your deck.
Is there-
like it.
Yeah, that's true. And you can gum up the board pretty well. Maybe it could be a sideboard card for like Selesnya Angels or something. I could see that.
You gain a
what if
lot of life.
What if you +1 get a 3/3 elemental with Wrenn and then put 2 +1/+1 counters on it? Hit him with a 5/5, and then you can start milling with Wrenn to fill your graveyard for your Archangel Allspeth.
Broke it. We
Broke it.
broke standard. We did it.
Okay. And then the passive helps you cast double green into double white. Perfect. Using all
done it.
all
You've
text of the
solved-
cards. I'm a genius.
You've solved the game.
So those are the two cards we got for March of the Machines. Like we mentioned before, spoiler season kicks off Wednesday. Wizards doing a stream, I think, at 1 Eastern to re-kick off spoiler season. And then we got spoilers for the whole next week. Tons of cards coming out. We actually have the following week a Commander deck to show off for y'all on the Commander Clash podcast. So look forward to that. But we also got some more spoilers. This is from some Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves Secret Lair drop action. So apparently this is an upcoming Universes Beyond Secret Lair drop with unique cards that we haven't seen before. However, I don't think it was supposed to be previewed yet. It seems like, from the best I can tell, one of Wizards' sites in, I think it was Japan, but maybe Singapore, I think it was, they put up an ad for this, and then people started to talk about it, and then once they realized people were talking about it, they took it back down. So I'm imagining it wasn't supposed to go live yet, but they did it accidentally. But it's out there now. So we got a whole bunch of new cards, actually. Richard, why don't you guide us through some Secret Lair X Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves cards?
All right. Have you guys seen the trailer?
Yes.
Yes, I did see the trailer.
Yes, I have.
The art here portrays the actual actors and actresses, right?
It's Chris Pine.
It is, right?
That's right. That's
Yeah,
your
okay.
Captain Kirk from
When
the Star
when
Trek
does that
remix.
release?
Wait, is that?
Do you guys
it
know?
is.
Yeah.
I will say that I've actually seen advertising for this movie. Like I drove on the highway and there's like a giant billboard of Dungeons and Dragons. So there's hope that this movie is actually legitimate, and the lighthearted take on it people seem to like. So if all goes well, maybe we'll see a magic movie.
You mean the Marvel effect?
Apparently it releases in full on Friday as well. So I
Yep.
wonder if the Secret Lair drop is coming out soon-ish. It would make sense to line it up with a movie, right?
Yeah.
It
but-
would make sense, but will Wizards do it? They're like, but printing problems. We'll see you in 6 months.
Are you guys actually gonna go see the movie? Like, are you going to the theater to watch the D&D movie?
Oh yeah. I mean, I like this movie. I've had a lot of friends who love D&D. They saw it, they loved it. They thought it was an absolute blast. So I'm kind of curious how it is. At first, I thought it was going to be kind of like, it looked kind of bad, but then, you know, as I continue to watch the trailers for it, it started getting a little bit better, and now I'm full on hype for it. I'm kind of curious to see how it plays out. Just seeing
you
like
would
the
watch
fantasy
this, but not
element.
Lord of the Rings.
I have watched Lord of the Rings. That is not the issue. I
Who's the
have watched
expert?
Lord of the Rings. Trust on that. The thing is, yeah, like this looks fun, and so I'm happy to see that the commander cards that are attached to it also are, some of them are pretty sweet, dude.
Yeah, well, I'll have to watch it when it makes its way to the Wizards streaming service. I guess this will come on Netflix or Amazon.
Yeah.
Because Wizards doesn't have a streaming service. But I'm an old man. I can't go to the movie theaters. Okay, so Chris Pine. Oh no, I don't even know any of these names. Edgin, Larcenous Lutinous. 1 blue, red, 3/3, legendary creature, human bard. When non-land card, each non-land card in your hand without Fortale has Fortale. Its Fortale cost is equal to its mana cost reduced by 2. When you cast your second spell each turn, goad target creature and opponent controls.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
Wait, does this do anything?
Sure.
This one is...
So you foretell it for 2, and then
Right.
you like flip it up for its real cost -2.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're like mana neutral, basically, as if you just
I mean,
casted
well-
it for real. You just get
No.
to queue up all your cards together, right?
It kind of
I mean-
helps with playing 2 spells in a turn.
Yeah.
Like you can foretell one to like get a discount in the future, so you can more easily cast 2
Right.
spells. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's not gonna combo off or anything, I don't think.
This card is sweet though. Like it's not like it's comboing off. It's just Edgin making it so you get a spell cheaper for later is cool, and then you get to goad. I love the idea of the goading. That's just a lot of fun, right? I mean,
I do
it
like
also
goad decks.
and goading kind of feels like it could be bardy. You know what I mean? So like, because he is a bard, so I like it from a flavor standpoint. I think it plays. It looks like it would play real fun, like a fun card. It plays better, or it seems better than the blue-white Fortale commander, in my opinion. I like this a lot more. So I don't know. This just looks, and it's cheap too. It's only a 1 blue-red for a 3/3. I like this. It comes down to a pretty. It's aggressively costed. It's not too broken. I think that's the main thing. It's just it feels like a fun commander.
Yeah, if you want to build a Fortale deck, like, I guess the thing I like about it is we just, there's really only one Fortale commander, and we have a decent amount of cards with that mechanic, and there's some cards that actually, like, Cosmos Charger reward you for playing a Fortale deck, so I think it's cool to have another Fortale commander. I think it's, like, kind of medium power level-wise, but more support for Fortale's cool.
I want to play Fortale Storm. Just every turn you foretell something. You have like 20 cards in the foretell exiled. Your phone's like, what are you even doing? You're like, don't worry.
Here's my whole
Don't
wait
worry.
for it.
You just wait, and then they're like silent. So you're like, no. Okay.
Nice try. Like discard deck. None of my cards are in my hand.
We have a double-sided card. Doric, Nature's Warden. 3 and a green, 3/3, legendary creature, tiefling druid, vigilance. When Doric enters the battlefield, search your library for a force and put it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. When Doric attacks, you may pay 1 and a green. If you do, Transformer becomes a giant owl bear.
Yeah,
Doric Owl Bear Avenger. 6/6 Vigilance Trample. When this creature transforms into Doric Owl Bear Avenger, other legendary creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain trample until end of turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, transform Doric. That's very druidy.
This card is cracked, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like you're able to constantly just keep pumping your legendary creatures and giving them trample.
Yeah, for
Right?
2 mana.
For
For
2
2,
mana.
because
Right.
you can flip it whenever it attacks for 2 mana, and then, yeah, you get a mini, like, overrun for your legends, and then you do it again the next turn. And it, like, even just the front side, it pays for half of its command tax every time you cast it, because you're getting a forest. So it's like a repeatable, almost like Solemn Simulacrum from the command zone, too. So, yeah, I think this card's, like, a power level wise, I think this is way stronger than Edgin. I think this is actually like a very powerful card for legendary tribal decks, or for like some sort of green ramp style deck. Like, it's kind of a cool commander.
Yeah, like I think this card is like really good. As a commander, it could be there like in the 99. I think it's also like great. Like I think this is just a cool card.
All right. I like the Owl Bear. I will be playing it for the Owl Bear.
The owlbear, like, and the transformation into the owlbear in the movie.
I like how it
trailer
transforms
looks
back
sweet.
too. You just get like one swipe, and then you're like, I'm done. Back to human form.
Yeah, but like, did you see the owlbear transformation in the trailer? Like, legit, it is sick.
No. Oh,
It's
I don't watch
awesome.
trailers. Trailers nowadays like give you like the whole movie, and I'm like, this defeats the purpose.
That's true.
So I
That's
only
true.
watch trailers for like movies that I just literally know nothing about. I need to know something about the movie, but for something like this where I know like roughly what's going on, I do not watch trailers. All right. Holga, Relentless Rager, 4 red, so it's a 6-drop, 4/6. Legendary creature, human barbarian, haste. Holga must be blocked if able. When Holga attacks each creature you control, attacking a player gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each creature that player controls. Okay.
That's
That is
Michelle
weird.
Rodriguez.
So each creature you control attacking a player. Okay, so if your opponent has like 5 creatures and you attack them, all your creatures attacking that player get +5/+0, and then
Right.
for all your opponents around the table.
Yes.
But you
I
don't
mean,
have
it
trample.
punctured. Right, no evasion. So that is kind of an issue. So you do get chump blocked a lot. It does offer a lot of damage though, right? Like
Yeah.
you play this and theoretically your opponents are going to have a bunch of creatures and your team just gets super huge. Kind of interesting as like a mono red token commander. I could see like almost like what Perforos wants. Like if you want a Perforos that you have to attack with your stuff, like it kind of reminds me of that play pattern where you just like go super wide, swing with this. It comes down with haste even, so you get to do it right away and hopefully just like take out the table.
Yeah. I mean, like you can like this. Each creature you control attacking a player gets +1 until end of each.
So
creature
you
that
want to
player-
give your opponents
That's
lots
awesome.
of creatures, right? And then you need
Yeah.
trample, and then like you can hit them for a lot. But remember, there's like that rat guy where you give everyone rats, then everyone just runs their
Yeah.
rats into each other, and like nothing happens.
Wait,
like
you-
I feel like once they know what's going on, given that this is literally in your command zone,
Yeah.
and you start giving tokens to other players, they'll just start like killing them off.
But do you
No.
think you have to give people, do you actually have to give people creatures, or do you just trust that like your opponents are going to have creatures?
Well, if they have
most
3
decks
creatures.
will have
Like, is
creatures.
this really a big deal? Like, they need to have a lot of creatures. If you're playing against Krim, this is like the saddest barbarian you've ever seen, right?
Yeah.
Like, you
I-
need to, you really need them to have like a lot of creatures, right?
This one,
I mean,
I think if Holga didn't cost 6 mana, I think this would be like pretty darn cool, right? I think like 3-4 mana, that's the like appropriate like, you know, cost in the current year. 6 mana is like excessively safe. You could obviously lower her stats.
I think this is going to be Slicer. Like, Slicer, I think this is a card that we're all going to look at in the Secret Lair drop and be, oh, like, that's a funny little red card. And then you're going to play against it and you're like, oh my god, that's just, like, killing all of us. I think it's actually just
Avenger
going to, like, kill
Zendikar
people.
players are not happy about this.
Doric
I mean, really,
feels
though,
like
how big
more
does
of
your-
the slicer.
How big does your team need to be? Like, what if you attack and all your stuff gets +3/+3? Isn't that still, like, kind of really good?
it's +3/+0, and this is a 6
or +3/+0. Yeah, okay.
Is that really? And you also actually you need to be going wide yourself too, right? To get enough pumping to make it
You
worth
do.
it, right? So
Yeah.
you require a lot of stuff to go right here for mediocre. Like I'd rather just flip the owl bear and get the appropriate.
Yeah, it's
pump for
not
2
as
mana,
good as
right?
Owlbear. Not as good as Owlbear, that's true.
Like Owlbear feels more like Slicer to me. Like that card just keeps going off.
All right, Krim, we got Forge, Neverwinter Charlatan, a human rogue.
A
3
rogue,
and
baby.
a black, 2/4. Legendary creature, human rogue, menace, ward, sacrifice a creature. Forge gets +2/+0 for each treasure you control. Uh-oh. Whenever one or more players sacrifice one or more creatures, you create a tapped treasure token. This ability triggers only once each turn.
So,
I mean-
as someone who loves edicts and rogues, right? Like, okay, they don't go in the same deck, but the thing here is like, I do think this card looks like it has a ward trigger that's kind of built in itself to make the opponent have to sack. Like, this is pretty decent, right? Like, I think this is a solid creature.
This card seems pretty. I think maybe not quite Owlbear busted, but I think this is the second strongest of the cards we talked about. Like, it's easy to make treasures these days, if you're playing this as your commander, isn't this consistently going to be a 4 mana 10/4, 12/4, 20 something for? Like,
Wait,
it's
how do you get
so
so many
easy to put-
treasures in black?
oh, you got Revel in Riches, you
Yeah,
got
so Revel in
Pitiless
Riches.
Plunder, you
I
got
guess.
Blood Money, Black Market
The-
Connections,
The dude that makes a treasure when he comes in, the 3 mana one, the Skullport Merchant.
Grim Ireling. There's actually
yeah.
like quite a
Yeah,
few
okay.
synergies for treasures in black. And then
But
plus
then-
like you're black so you can do sacrifice synergies. So if you're
Yup.
like doing sacrifice loops on each turn, you can be making 4 treasures each turn cycle. So that's like a decent amount of treasure production just for
I
that.
mean, like, you lock this up with like a Dictator or a Grave Pact, plus like a free sack outlet that you can activate in a turn cycle. You just do it on everyone's turn. You're making 3 treasures a
But
lap.
you won already. You don't even need this guy.
I don't know if you've won already. I wouldn't say you won.
I feel my greatest plan for this is to just play Revel in Riches, rat the board, play Forge, and then Disciple Bowls to draw like my deck, and then call it a day. Because you're at this weird thing where you have treasures and you want to use them, right? You don't want to just hoard treasures; like they do nothing. So to keep them pumped, you need to keep the treasures around, but you kind of want to use them. So interesting. And
Also,
you need 10 treasures to one shot someone.
Yeah. So
you have
it's like
Menace,
Revel in
so you
Riches,
kind
the
of almost
creature.
do it, right?
Yeah, a little evasion. It has a little protection built in. So I imagine Treasure Voltron could be a thing. I would also play it in the 99 of other treasure decks, I think.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Agnes or Zeatora or whatever, Prosper.
Prosper would definitely love this.
You can try to somehow team up to take out a player, because like all the other players can keep trying to target this thing and sacking a creature for war to make treasures to pump this up, and then like help you get in for lethal against someone.
Yeah,
so it's kind of cute. All right, Simon, Wild Magic Sorcerer, 2 and a blue, 1/1, legendary creature, human elf shaman. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell with mana value 3 or greater, roll a d20. 1 to 9, each player draws a card. 10 to 19, you draw a card. 20, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for that copy.
This card is hilariously fun, right? This is like a commander that for the most part, I think everybody will want this on the table, just because if you roll a 1 through 9, everybody draws a card. I mean, like this is one of those commanders where I think if you play it, it'll be legitimately some of the most fun for the table, because it's all RNG. It's your luck, right? Either everybody wins or you profit like a generous amount there. So, but you have to roll 10 and above to get something that just strictly benefits you. 1 through 9 benefits the table. So it's one of these cards where it's just not offensive enough to where I don't want to kill this. I want to see what you roll. So like I don't know, like what do y'all think? This is hilariously fun. It's like Party Jace.
I mean, it's I don't really like the 3 mana value restriction. I feel like that makes it hard to trigger consistently. So to me, it does look fun. Like just have it sit out and everyone draws cards. Like if you want to do group hug things or just like to play for fun, it's fine. But I think this is one of the weakest cards, just power level wise. Like,
oh yeah.
If you look at the cards that you play that'll trigger, everyone's like pondering and counter spelling, and like 3 mana value or greater just means you're not going to actually roll for it all that often, I don't think, in most decks.
So you have to play the medallions or whatever. Like you need to play mana reductions and then have everything be 3 mana value and then try to storm off and pop off. Because it is pretty fun for you to basically don't know if you're going to win or not. You're like, well, I need to draw, and I need to hit enough 10 to 19 so that I don't draw my opponents into an answer for this card, right? And then when you hit that, like, imagine you cast a draw spell or something, right? And you hit that 20, you get a double. You're like, yes, like the critical hit. So it's a pretty fun spell. Card,
it is fun.
Mana value 3 or greater makes it fair, I guess. Makes it not broken, but I'd be fine with the broken version. Would it really be bad if it was just any spell or mana value 3 or less? Half the time you draw a table a card, right? Half the time you're going backwards, right? I think that's fair.
And it's a 3 mana 1/1. Like it's not like it's some super push stat. So yeah, I think it would be fine if it was any spell.
I mean, if it were any spell, sure. Yeah. I that's a lot of card draw. I don't know. Yeah. This is definitely very safe when you look at it, but like I think as a card, it's clearly the weakest one. But it is gonna lead to a lot of fun if you build around it with a bunch of cheap spells, and you just try to
expensive spells
or
not cheap spells.
I guess that's true. Like if you think about how expensive the cards,
so what you gotta do is omniscience.
3 are great.
Yeah, omniscience. And then,
this card's great if you have omniscience out.
And then you sign it, okay.
Yeah, Any spell would be fine, because then but I guess this card would be busted if it went with consider and brainstorm and all of
What
that
it
as
though?
well.
Because half the time you draw your opponent's cards and they can answer this.
I guess that's true. Yeah,
It's still 50,
okay.
almost
Right?
50.
They can interact
It's
or
slightly
do whatever,
in your favor.
right?
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
It does seem fun.
Okay, last card. Zenk, Paladin Unbroken. 2 white, 2/4, legendary creature, human knight, double strike, auras you control have exalted.
This auras giving your stuff exalted, I think is kind of cool, right? This is a cool text thing. I don't know if it's actually good though. It's essentially, it does play nicely in that if you are just loaded with auras, you are actually double buffing your commander essentially, or whatever creature you're equipping it to. But he is kind of wide open, but he does come with double strike. He doesn't have ward or anything like that. I thought he'd have ward maybe.
What kind of paladin is this?
Yeah, not much protection.
So fragile.
I mean,
yeah.
The text is, I like the text. I like the idea of giving your auras exalted, but
Yeah,
it's just kind of a Voltron commander. Play a bunch of auras,
100.
try to kill people with it. So I feel the play pattern's not super interesting to me, but if I was playing Ural or any aura, Mazzy, Light Paws, some sort of Voltron-y aura deck, I would probably play this in it, or you can just build around it.
Just a 4 mana enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each aura you control, essentially, right? The whatever those effects are called. Is this really bad? We could, it's was it ethereal armor? 1 mana, whatever.
I guess that's
effects
true.
are 2 mana
Ethereal
usually.
armor. Yeah.
On a creature that can get picked off, because you're usually stacking everything on a protected creature, but you can actually remove this one quite easily.
Except
Yeah.
you can kind of move it around. You can attack with a different creature each turn, so I guess it's a little more resilient, maybe.
What kind of Voltron
but yes,
deck,
I guess it
has
kind of
that
is.
flexible. Let me attack with my non-Voltron creature. Here we go.
Yeah. All right. Maybe it's actually just kind of bad.
I as a paladin main, I'm very sad. He doesn't feel very paladin-y.
Wait, what? Auras is the most paladin-y thing you could be playing, right?
Is it?
As a paladin?
I don't know. I feel he should have ward. I feel he should be able to ward other creatures or something. I don't know, man. I feel he should heal or something. Be tanky. Anything. Should be a 115 or something. You're not killing me. I deal no damage though.
I mean, yeah.
All right. So
Doomblade.
those
Favor fail.
it does die to Doomblade. I gotta be bad then. Nothing that dies to Doomblade can be good. Anyway, those are our spoilers for this week. Like I said, more March of the Machines coming out on Wednesday, so keep an eye out for that. MTG previews on the YouTube, all that stuff. But we got a few other topics to hit up before we get to the end of the cast. So let's do a little lightning round here and get through these other topics. Number one, we got a leadership change at TCG Player. Chetty Hampson, who I believe founded TCG Player a long time ago, CEO of TCG Player, stepping down about 6 months ago. TCG was sold to eBay. So, Richard, what do you make of this? I've heard some people think he must have done something to make eBay unhappy or whatever, and that's why they're booting him out. Or is this just kind of normal acquisitions in business that once your company gets bought out after 6 months or a year, they kind of transition to their own people?
Yeah, I think it's pretty sus, but not in the way people are thinking. So this was definitely 100% agreed upon, when they sold the company. People are saying, oh, maybe it's the union thing, or maybe it's whatever. Nah, it's this was definitely pre-planned. 6 months is pretty short, though. So oftentimes it's a year, you stay on for a year, or maybe forever as a consultant or some, diminished role. But they're we need you to keep the company together. So yes, you made it, but we need you to stick around. eBay was nah, we're good. We're good. 6 months. We don't need you. Which tells me eBay has its own plans. They don't really care whatever they were doing, TCG Player was doing. So get ready for some changes, whatever that is. Like so eBay installed their VP of collectibles, Gene Cook. So they'll be taking over TCG Player. And this 6-month transition tells me that they don't really care what the heck TCG Player is doing. Like they got their own plans. So now we're gonna see like whatever eBay's vision for TCG Player is come to fruition.
Should be interesting to see how. Yeah, that's kind of my take on it too. That I'm sure I expected this was probably a planned thing rather than some random thing that happened. It'll be interesting to see if this is good or bad for people selling on TCG Player, buying on TCG Player now that eBay's presumably going to have a even more active role. Like they've owned it for 6 months, but now it seems like it's going to be their people that are actively running it. So we'll see if that means anything, if prices go up or, any of that kind of stuff. It will be interesting. We also got...
I was just going to say, it's interesting that TCG Player started with Magic, essentially, right? And they branched out to other things. So TCG Player has always been kind of Magic central. eBay's VP of collectibles is probably everything but Magic central, right? eBay sells everything, and they're like, well, Pokemon cards make so much money, right? Or random comic book makes so much money, right? So I'm curious if Magic gets deprioritized further because they don't have kind of that we started with Magic and there's the soft spot for us and whatever, right? None of that, right? Yeah. They're nah, right? Superman #1 is where it's at, right? We're turning this into a comic book store, so I don't know, right? So it'll be interesting to see where TCG Player goes from here.
Plus, eBay doesn't have the best reputation for buying Magic cards. I think they've tried to improve it, and they got the thing now with expensive cards. They have to be graded. They send them to someone to check their authenticity and whatnot. But especially before that, I know people were a little sketched out just about getting counterfeits or what if I need to return something? What if it's a scam? So maybe this will be a good thing. Maybe this will help improve eBay as far as their Magic cards, or like you said, it could go the other direction where maybe that just gets deprioritized. But in other news, Krim, we got a topic that I know you're excited about. Oathbreaker is kind of an official format. You love making people miserable in games of Magic, and Oathbreaker is the perfect format for that. How hyped are you, Krim, now that Oathbreaker is real?
I mean, I've already prepped my 2 decks for Richmond.
What are they, Krim?
I've got Gaia Drone Dahada, right, with Siphon Insight. And then I've got Ashiok Nightmare Weaver with Tasha's Hideous Laughter. So
God.
I've got my 2 decks and I've prepped them and I'm ready for Richmond. Gaia Drone Dahada just pretty much gonna steal all your stuff. And Siphon Insight, a great card to have with that. Or that's interchangeable. You could play that with Tasha, but I like having Grixis spells. So I don't know. Oathbreaker, I'm gonna try it again, play it again, right? When we played, we mostly played 1v1, right? So obviously, that's a deck where when I was originally playing Teferi Silence, great in 1v1, right? Amazing in 1v1. Absolutely terrible in a 4-player game. I got completely dumpstered. I remember when we played it, we brought 2 more people into the pod, and I got dumpstered, right? Because all that happened was I locked one person out while everyone else was beating up on me. So, I don't know.
What do you think, Richard? Does this matter? Is this a big deal in any way?
Nah. So I mean, so being an officially recognized format means it showed up on the Wizards website, right? So that means if you're oh, how can I play Magic the Gathering? There's a section on Oathbreaker that tells you the rules of Oathbreaker. The biggest problem with Oathbreaker was balance. There's some insanely broken things because you essentially just have a 2-card combo sitting in the command zone. I don't know that any of this fixes any of that. I actually still have my 2 Oathbreaker decks that we built way back when the format first popped off. It's a fun thing to play. But, when people do quite degenerate things like Krim did degenerate, but bad things, right? You can do degenerate, but actually really good, right? The equivalent of Demonic Consultation Thoracle in your command zone, essentially, is possible because you have 2 cards sitting there. Is the problem. So I don't know. So maybe with all of this focus on Oathbreaker, they try to balance it more or something. I don't know what will happen, but a lot of people looking at the format right now. And the last time I looked at it, it was the balance that was kind of weird.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am at with it too. Like the balance isn't good. It's even more so than I think actual Commander. It's a format that really benefits from people wanting to play it casually. Like played casually, the idea is really cool because you're like, oh, I can play like my favorite Chandra as my commander, and then I can have whatever Chandra's Outrage or some like flavorful Chandra card, and I have like the ultimate flavor deck going on. Like that part of it's really cool, but if you try to build it degenerately, it is really easy to end up with broken, unfun stuff. So I think if you do decide to try it out, like, but try playing it for fun. Like, if you want to try to break Oathbreaker, you definitely can break Oathbreaker, and people will probably stop playing with you after a few games because they're going to get sick of it. But if you want to play it for fun, it definitely is an interesting format if you treat it that way. Speaking of...
There's definitely Narset and, like, what is it, Windfall that you could do. That's obviously really busted.
Yeah, don't do that. Or Teferi Silence, Crim.
Okay, but
even though it's not good.
Don't do that.
You made me quit the format, Crim. It wasn't even good, but you ruined it for me.
It's strictly not even optimal because I found out I should have just been playing Orum's Chant.
Well, speaking of broken things, Magic Arena has literally been broken since the last update. There's a bug impacting, I know for sure, Ninja's Kinui and Blazing Torch of all cards, two unplayable cards, but they're cards that sacrifice themselves to deal so much damage. And the way the bug works is if you sacrifice them, it sacrifices all your permanents, and each of your permanents will deal that amount of damage. So there's like some really fast combo kills with these cards in their bugged form. And people have been abusing the bug, and Wizards put out a thing about like, we're trying to fix it, but please stop abusing the bug. We're going to suspend you if you like abuse the bug. What do you make of all this? Obviously bugs are going to happen. My question is, why don't they just ban these cards? Like, these are two cards that literally have no impact outside of Limited. No one is playing these fairly. Like, they're only playing them to abuse the bug. Wouldn't the easiest path forward just to be, like, to temporarily suspend them until they can fix them?
I mean, yeah. Like, just don't even leave it on the client for right now. And
that's what I would think.
Like, every game you do it. When there's a bug, they can block a character or game piece from ranked. I don't know why Wizards never built this in or hasn't built this in on the several occasions it's happened since release. Maybe they should use this opportunity to build it in so that they can
even
disable. Because probably something like it'll take us like 2 weeks to disable it. So rather than disable, we'll just fix it because it can take 2 weeks anyway. But it really should take like 20 seconds, like someone presses a button like this card is blocked, and then you can fix the bug on your schedule, right? So it's weird they haven't built this in. Maybe they should build it in now because I don't know, it's like a handrail or something, right? Like, well, just don't fall, but you're like, people are gonna fall, okay? So you gotta put the handrail there. Like, you can't just be like, people won't fall. There will be bugs with cards, right? You just need to be able to stop it. And, you know, threatening everyone on a Twitter post like no one reads is like not particularly useful, because like, what if you found the bug? You're like, what? And then you tried it again. You're like, huh? And like, oh, this is kind of funny, haha. And then you got banned because you didn't read the Twitter post, right? So I don't know. Just have a button.
Some people. Yeah, just have a button. Or some people are actually like, well, if that's the way the game works, like, that's how it works. Like, it's right for me to win that way, since those are how the actual cards are working at the moment. So some people, like, intentionally just keep doing it. But yeah, hopefully they figure out a better system for that in the future for banning stuff. Last thing I wanted to mention before actually two things real quick. One is we got some Ixalan information. Krim, you gotta settle this for us. So the information that came out is Ixalan is going to be an underground set. When I heard that, I pictured like mole people in caves.
Right.
When Richard heard that, he pictured like Streets of New Capenna, some sort of like criminal underground type of setting. What do you think it is? Are we literally going underground, or is there another meaning to underground?
I am going to take it one farther, and I think it's going to be demons and pirates, and they're going to the underworld.
Ooh.
Hey, that sounds realistic.
I could see that.
Like legitimately think Pirates of the Caribbean. Right?
Okay.
But like, instead of like, you know, Squid Monster Guy, it's like Squid Monster Guy teams up and fights demons. I think it's going to be absurdly in the other direction of campy. And this way, it's not as boring of a set. Because if it's just pirates going underground, I think it's going to be kind of boring. like, okay. So that's too on the nose of a response, right? So that's why I think Capenna, okay, I don't even know what that means. Like, wait, we would go underground into, like, in what way? What is Capenna?
How about this? I hear your pirates, and I give you the Pirate Bay, Krim. We go underground and start printing proxies and counterfeits.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a set about counterfeits, yeah.
It's a set all about proxies. You make your own cards as we go. I got it.
Like
I got
underground organizations, criminal, like, essentially we do Capenna, which is why it's probably not true, but, like, what the heck are mole people, man? Like, is this something?
Okay,
like, you dig down. You're like, oh my god, there's this world under here that's just another world, and it's like
it's
people that can't see for some reason.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Okay, well, we're closer to kobolds than we are to underground, like crime organizations, right? I would say it's closer to kobolds, but I think you go one farther than the kobolds. You go to the underworld. You see, like, this, like, all these more fantasy-like creatures.
That's like the afterlife. That's not underground anymore. Like, you've got.
I guess that's fair.
It's like you go so deep, you just pop out in China. You're like, it's just another.
Okay, that's fair. So maybe it is on the nose, and it's literally just kobolds, though.
Okay. What if you go underground and you find water? Perhaps it's a sea of some sort, and then you need to print a chase card, and you'll call it Underground Sea.
Sounds familiar. And problematic in that there's a list. I don't mean the list. I mean a list.
It's got to be like Journey to the Center of the Earth. Like that's how I picture it.
Yeah.
Like that's like literally underground adventure with still like it's got to be the Ixalan themes though. There's still got to be dinosaurs.
I got the last one for you. Okay, they go underground.
Okay.
And they have a dance off. It's a BTS theme set. It's like an underground J-pop group.
BTS is K-pop, Richard. And second,
I know, but I'm just saying there's like underground J-pop, and there's they're like break dancing down there. It's like a dance off, right? Like
and then what? And then what's the gimmick of the set? Like you gotta
the gimmick is you have to do a dance off between two cards. It incorporates the new battle mechanic. The battle's actually a dance.
It's a dance battle.
A dance battle,
dude, I didn't actually factor that in there. Okay, you know what? Yeah, that's Richard's making a lot of sense, Seth. You're clearly pitching the most ridiculous idea.
Dance battle. Yeah, no, I think Richard.
Look, there's so many
Richard
dance battle
out.
movies that this has to be popular. Like, there's no way.
I mean, you know what? Like, sure. I just found out their like dating shows are more popular than they ever were. So like
Really?
like I'm talking like The Bachelor and stuff like that. Yeah, so like, you know what? Why not have a dance battle? I might have missed the whole window where that became popular to where it came into card games.
Mole people. Like Bleach?
Mole people.
I think of like the mutants underground.
Yes.
What are people
exactly.
doing underground, right? They're like hiding from the dinosaurs or something, right? Like,
I mean, yeah, like, okay, that is it is Journey to the Center of the Earth, right? Like, that's probably what it's going to be. Without dancing.
All right, last topic, and we're gonna hit this one real quick. So Mark Rosewater posted his teaser for March of the Machines. I'll try to link it in the description if you want to read it over. There's a ton of stuff on there, so we can't go over all of it, but there's one notable thing, which is we're getting the 10th of the sword cycle, which means we get to find out if Krim's blue-black sword, how close is that to actual reality? What was your sword again, Krim? Do you remember the abilities from the podcast a few weeks ago?
It gave pro blue black, as you would understand, typical sword stuff. But then it's like when you connect, so it would be that you would give out -1/-1 counters, maybe like 2 or 3 or something like that. And then it would also allow you to exile off the top of your opponent's library, and then you can play whatever's exiled off the top and spend mana as if they were mana of any color.
I actually think that ability could be a thing. They have like Siphon Insight. People love that card. People love Yanti and stealing their opponent's cards. I don't know about the -1/-1 counters in Proliferate Standard. It seems like they tried to avoid that, but I do think the thieving ability could actually work. So I'm excited to see the last of the swords.
Isn't the -1/-1 ability exactly why you'd play it right now in a Proliferate Standard?
Well, no, I think Wizards, like, I feel like Gavin recently said, like, we intentionally didn't put any -1/-1 counters in the standard. Like, I think someone from Wizards said they were, like, not doing that. Maybe they make an exemption for the sword, though. Just
you put one -2 counter.
Oh,
we're going back to Homeland.
There it is.
Empires.
Okay.
They don't want that proliferated. Anyway, I think those are all of our topics. Ooh, Richard, can we squeeze in a super quick fish mail this week?
All right. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail. @SebiDC3244. When I play Commander with my friends who tend not to use counter magic in casual games, but when I go to my LGS, not everyone follows that. And of course, how many counter spells on average should I be running against players I have not played with before?
Oh no, we're gonna have very different answers to this.
So the gist is when I play at home, no one plays counter spells, but I go to my LGS, people play counter spells. How many counter spells should I play?
So, I mean, I normally play like
not even joking.
I might play in a generic deck. I would play like 2 or 3 maybe, like at the most. Like I usually have like a counter spell or a mana drain, and then maybe there's a flexible one. Like if you have the mana, like Archmage's Charm is really sweet because you can turn it into card draw if you need to. But I'm usually in the like right around 2 or 3.
It comes down to what kind of deck, though. Legitimately, it does come down to the deck, right? Like, if you're like an aggro deck, I think there's no reason for you to pack a ton of counterspells. What you should pack as a counterspell instead is a way to protect your board, like Teferi's Prose, Clever Concealment. Play a bunch of those. But if you're a tempo control deck, let's just say like your Ninjas, Rogues, or a control deck, whatever, then I would look at least, there's already like a lock, right, for 4 spots. Mana Drain, Arcane Denial, like depending if you're blue-white, Dovin's Veto, Fierce Guardianship, right? That's already like 4 locks. I think that are just like safe to always include. And then then you start like you could add forces if you really like are shelling out the dough or whatever. But yeah, like for the most part, there's 4 counterspells you play. And then if you're like a tap out control deck, just play like maybe Mana Drain because that's a ramp spell. Arcane Denial, Mana Drain is like probably the correct one there. If you're like a tap out control, but if you're like draw go control, then you go ham, and that's where you go to like the unholy levels. Where if it's not a counter spell, it's a board wipe or an answer. And I think you're looking at like 10, at least just counter spells straight up, like 10 to 11, somewhere around.
How
many do you play, Richard?
0. Well, I mean, okay, so realistically, like 1. Probably 2 I max out at. But given the nature of this question, if you don't normally play with counter spells, that means your deck doesn't need counter spells, right? And I would actually do like Krim said and just put in more redundancy, like Teferi's Protection or whatever. Like whatever you fear getting countered, just play another one, right? So that if you get countered, you can play another one. Also, if you are actually very fearful of counter spells, then you play the anti-counter spell cards, not the counter spells themselves, right? So you would play Grand Abolisher, whatever the equipment thing is that you can equip.
3 fairy if you're in blue white.
Yeah, 3 fairy. So yeah. So unless you're playing a deck like Krim was describing, like it's a control deck or whatever that already has ample counter spells, I wouldn't bother with this.
Don't dilute your game plan. Just back up your game plan more, right? Because you're gonna have to push counter. Like someone's got to force those counter spells.
Let Krim counter his own spells.
Just or have the table pretty much play stuff that's more threatening than you. Play the slow game.
Answer, right? You let other people bait out the counter spells, right?
Yeah.
So if you know someone has counter spells, don't play like the bombiest best thing on the board that must be dealt with because they'll get counter spell. Let someone else do it. And then when
Right.
Crim's empty-handed because he countered everything, then you play your thing.
Correct.
And be cautious of where you sit. Don't sit right in front of Crim. You want to be right behind Crim, ideally, the Crim players, so they don't know if they should spend their counters on you. Being the person right before the counter spell player that's the worst.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're just probably gonna get got anyways.
Gotta spend it on something. Yeah, can't let that mana go to waste. Oh, so anyway, Richard, in the future, if people want to send in more questions, how should they do that?
All right, send them over to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 426 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So Richard Crim, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And we will be back next week to talk about March of the Machine spoilers and whatever else goes on in the world of Magic. So until then, have a lovely week, everyone. And this is Crew signing out.